Okay, magic makers, we are going to take a little bit of a detour. Today we're going to go deep into mindset and really what are the behaviors? What are some of the energies behind some of the crap we do and why we do them? Because so many of us are like, I know what to do, but I just can't seem to stop doing it. Well, I have a guest here who's going to really help you really get behind and understand what are the transformational energies, the modalities that we need to start tapping into, start paying attention to that's really going to help us to move the needle forward versus always feeling like we are always stuck in neutral. Isabelle Clara, please welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and your guests.
It's usually it's funny. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a woman who was one of my like mentors back like 10 years ago. And now she's doing more like psychic energy work, which I feel for her. Like that was just kind of always the questions that she gave me. And for you, like what was it that made you start saying, you know what, women really need to start to tap into, this like hidden energy that we all have that we just kind of like push over in the corner.
Well, you're talking to a person that really, I basically, the moment I graduated from college, which was so many years ago, I basically looked for ways to use my intuition. I didn't know that's what I was really doing,
Mm,
but
right.
that was the thing that made me feel passionate and feel alive. To really have a sense of it started out small, it just
Right.
started out with oh, I think I know what's going to happen, or I would use it as a guiding force for me in my life.
Right.
And so that's one of the most important things I think that women have. And we were always second guessed
Mm-hmm.
life, and we were trained, many of us, to not speak, not give our opinions. And but for me, the more that I heard that from my guardians, my family,
Mm-hmm.
wherever we started out from, the more I had a reaction in my body
Yeah.
is another thing that I think is really key to pay attention to. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it was to pay attention to some of the sensations in the body. But I really spent, and this is how I got to this point, I really spent my whole life avoiding feelings and sensations that I had in my body. I called myself the great escape artist.
Mm.
I was really good at it. I could walk away from anything. I could just pretend things weren't in front of me. And I spent the my whole life kind of avoiding things.
Right.
And I feel like that's something a lot of us do. And not to our it's a more grounding experience to know where we're at and how we're thinking, as opposed to just not being there, vacant in our bodies.
You hit several nails on the head. First, I think so many of us don't listen to that inner voice. There's this inner voice that is sometimes whispering, sometimes shaking us by the shoulders,
Mhm.
and we kind of dismiss it because we don't trust ourselves because other people told us not to trust ourselves, or
Right,
your inner voice might be crazy.
right. Well, that's a great way to get rid of people around you by telling them or not deal with them, is for you to tell them that um no, no, that doesn't mean anything, or what you're saying doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because I came up with this too. I thought that later on in life, um I really knew what was going to happen years before things were going to happen, and I devalued any of that information I was getting. I think that some of us, we either hear things or we feel things, and or we have a combination, and
Mm.
maybe we don't know how to access that,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
we're so busy pushing it down that we create a voice.
Mm.
I think that's like totally key, that we create a voice that's not supportive to ourselves because maybe the world around us isn't supportive either. And we want to be in alignment with what our parents taught us, our teachers are teaching us, or our friends, at some point. And we say, okay, oh no, they don't have that idea. So maybe my idea is crazy. So we start
Yeah.
saying these things to ourselves.
Yeah, you're right. It's like if you kind of broke the mold and you said, you know what, there's some like I'm getting these intuitive hits and I'm going to see where it goes. Where so many of us will be like, I don't know what I'm going to tell someone about it, and then someone's going to tell me I'm crazy, or someone's going to tell someone, and they're
Right.
going to I'm going to like take their opinion and shove down what I'm already feeling on the inside, and not
Right.
versus can
Right.
I explore this?
Exactly. Exactly. And but because our reality is created by what our thoughts are, now we know that. Maybe we didn't know it
Mm,
then, right? Now we all know that. Um, those we chose people to back us up
yeah.
on the fact that, oh, we are crazy. We don't know what we're saying. Oh my God,
Hmm.
someone else is doing it. Instead
Right.
of, can you imagine if someone said to you or said to me, I think I would have run with this. If somebody said, oh my God, you're right. Nobody else is thinking about it, but you did. How smart you are, how intelligent you are, or how intuitive you are. But
Right.
never, most of us did not get that. But I think,
No.
times are changing because women know that now. And I think that they do say that and they do empower their children with different words. And I think that all of that's coming about also because we know how it felt,
Yeah.
right? And we spent our whole life trying to gain that power, that inner power inside of ourselves to get up the nerve or be able to speak in public, be able to talk about our thoughts and feelings. So we're at that juncture right now where I think children are being more listened to than they ever were, and they can move on from there. But now, reality, if it was done to us, we would have been, ooh, in our lives.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, I could say whatever.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right. I think now, social media, love it, hate it, has opened the door that you can expand your circle. So if you are around those people who are like, don't listen to your gut,
Hmm.
that you'll find someone on, online who's like, yeah, I listen to my gut all the time. And, it's 50-50. Sometimes it leads me down the
Right.
wrong direction. Sometimes but most of the time I get a nice,
Yeah.
I get a nice hit on just following what my gut says.
Right. But what was that turning point where you decided my gut's right? I'm in tune with my gut,
Mm,
my gut's right. It took me years and years to get to that point
yeah,
in life. And it wasn't till I actually told someone I heard in my head that they were gonna have a baby girl, and they walked by me, and I go, "Oh, Diane, you're gonna have a baby girl," and she's like, "Huh, no, I'm having a boy. I've already
mm,
done everything." So 2 weeks later, she ended up having a girl, and I went to myself, I go, "That was the turning point for me." Can you imagine? I go, and I was so mad because I heard it clear as a bell. And I was so mad. I goes, how can I be wrong? I went and, I was talking not nice to myself about that.
right,
And
exactly.
who did I think I was? And, all the words that go with that. And I ended up being right. And right at that point, that was a gift, right? That was my gift to myself, where
Hmm.
I could own that part of me without judgment or anything. And so now if I say something and it sounds completely off field or it sounds completely wrong, and I'm like, wait, why am I hearing this?
Hmm.
I say no to myself immediately. And I think that's a key thing on creating magic in your life, which what you talk about, is
Right.
to own that part of you. And even if it doesn't seem like it's right at that point, or it doesn't seem like it's accurate information, there's a part of it that's right because it came from you, you said it, and you trust that part of you. And that's how you start to develop that trust in yourself.
Yeah.
So after that, and if anybody disagreed with me with things, I was just open to it. I didn't argue with anybody. And I was like, there's a reason I'm saying that. There's a reason I heard that. And so it would show up closer to the time. I didn't have to wait 2 weeks anymore, but it
Right,
would show
right.
up maybe in a day. And I would say, because I like to talk to my spirit guides, my
Mm,
spirit, right? Or my higher self. And I say, okay, well, what was that about?
right,
And it's like sometimes here, it's just, you got it. We'll see, And I asked for the time that I began to know to be closer in time so I would know quicker
right,
because you can declare that in the world, and which I think is a really huge gift for us to have that we could declare, hey, can you give me more information here? Can
right.
you show me a sign?
And this is what I think, as you just said, we don't ask enough questions, right? We just kind of expect this, like, especially in the nutrition world, it's not black and white. You and I, our jobs would be so much easier if it was like black and white. Like, take
Right,
two of these and call me in the morning. It would be so much
right.
easier. And
And the truth is, we don't have all the answers still, right?
right.
We only
So,
know what techniques work for us and what we can do to support other people. And then those people that are supported that we could support will show up for us. But
right.
I think that a key thing is us learning, right?
Mm,
Still, you're asking questions.
yeah.
Before we even started our interview, you wanted to have a conversation. We were having a conversation. And that's a brilliant way to just get curious and
Mm.
know about the other person. And we're learning all the time.
Right. And you used one of my favorite words, curiosity. And I feel in this, nutrition space, there's not enough curiosity. We've been brainwashed into believing that there is a magic diet out there or a magic plan that's going to fix us
Right.
from all of our ills. And you've written two books about how, like,
How it didn't
we
work, how I lived my life not working.
yeah, exactly. You read two books, like, I'm still not fixed, right? So it's like it's not
So funny. Yeah.
a black and white
And
kind
you
of
know how long
thing.
it took for me to even say that? You know,
Decades.
that I'm not like, I don't have all the answers and I'm not fixed. And I always said, I can't write a book,
Mm,
but I think my life is funny, and my little antidotes are funny. So
they
I
are. And
started writing a book.
what's it? Because I also feel like we're so close to ourselves, and you're just like, I mean, don't you all know what I know? And you just kind of, we discount all the stories that are behind us or all the stories that are relatable to other women that you're like, oh, you feel that way too? Okay, I thought it was just me. Okay, all right. Maybe there is something here to, like, unpack and unravel.
Right.
And, you talk a lot about women having their unlimited potential, which I totally am, like, right there for you. I'm a big believer. However, someone listening is like, girl, all I want is unlimited carbs. How am I going
What
to
carbs? That's so funny. Unlimited.
unlimited carbs? It's all I want. Like, give me like, bring it on,
I
no weight gain.
mean,
And so it's like,
we already can have that.
how do you, like, we start to kind of take our energy and start to really, like, look at it as a way to, like, impact our ability to focus on what we want for our health.
Right. So we can have unlimited carbs. We can eat whatever we want. The problem, I think what happens is people don't like that. Like they don't
Mm,
be out of control like that. They don't want to eat unconsciously. They don't want to be unaware of why. If they're listening to this podcast, they want to be aware of what's motivating them to eat like that and why they can't stop.
right. Yeah, that there right there, it's like, I think, if we have several different layers of us as people, we only look at we only peek underneath the cover. We don't really take a few digs deeper to be like, what is causing that need for unlimited carbs or unlimited whatever you think you need to have.
Right. And I start a lot of this conversation out, when I talk to people, it's just I think that we are lucky that we discovered carbs or sugar
Mhm.
because in our life, we can't knock that down because it saved us,
Yeah.
right? Because we were dealing with big people, crazy people around us, not so nice people around us, maybe some dangerous people around us.
Mm,
We were children and we didn't know how to express ourselves. And then one day, oh, mom gave me candy, the school gave me candy, and we felt better. We felt okay because the truth is, after you eat something like that, you do feel okay for a little bit.
Yeah,
you know,
you do.
until it becomes our whole consuming life,
Yes.
then all of a sudden we are making everything we eat or how we think, all of it becomes bad or some kind of judgment on it.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
we didn't do the judgment part of it, like where did we even get that? We
Yes.
might be, just okay, and it wouldn't be such a program in our head of, oh my God, I can't do this. And then what ends up happening because we're telling our brain not to do something, right? We actually do the thing our brain tells us not to do.
Right.
That conversation, because the brain doesn't say, oh, I cannot do this. It's saying, okay, do this. The brain doesn't understand that word.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because even if just even the thought that it's in your head and you keep fixating on it, your brain doesn't see no, it's like, oh, this is what you want. You keep thinking about,
Right.
whatever it is that you're thinking about. So clearly this is what you
Right.
want.
I'm going to get it for you. And
Right.
not that I'm so good at it now. I can get it wherever we are.
Right. I can, seek it out. Like even if you're like thinking about apples, you're gonna see apples everywhere because your
Right.
brain's like, you keep thinking about apples. So here, I'll keep presenting them to you.
Wouldn't it be great if we turned all that, which we do, right, into creating abundance for ourselves?
Yeah.
That is key. One of my mentors taught me, she goes, hey, listen, abundance is abundance.
Mm.
Abundance of food, you
Hmm.
have abundance of money. It's the same thing. It's the same like path you're going down to create abundance for yourself. I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant.
That is brilliant because if we were playing word association right now and we said abundance, most people would put some type of money there
Right.
versus you could have abundance of
Wouldn't
love.
say, right. We wouldn't say, oh, I got an abundance of like chicken in my in my or
Refrigerator,
we
right.
didn't say that because it's not we're like mad at the fact that we have that and we're going to eat that and we know we're going to eat it later. So
Yeah. And so
yeah.
you're like, why did I have an abundance of whatever it is that I wanted
Right.
to eat in my head?
I,
And you
I,
do you have your book that you have bod behavior, and you talk about just ways that we act on to our body, mostly super critical. So if someone is sitting here and they're like, I just feel stuck, and I just you all the negative Nancy stuff is coming out, and you're just going there, like what are some of the ways that you kind of help women find out what's actually blocking them and so they can get unstuck?
mhm. Well, before the blocking part of what's going on, and um, I I came up with a word. I came up with a word, and it's called Nourish, and it's the subject of my app. It's
Mm.
called the Nourish app, and I started using that word as a way to take the edge off of any my different outworn behaviors that I had that were centered around food. So I started to take my life and put it into a bigger picture of not just food, everything, how I do relationships, how I do work, how I speak to people, how I look at my past relationships. And I use the word nourish. Doesn't that have another ring to it?
Mm-hmm.
Listening to that word?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what ended up happening in the last few years is my path became a more joyful path.
Mm.
It became a path that good and bad, evil, not great, any of those words I used to associate these behaviors that were centered around food became had a different tone to them. So the word nourish has a tone to it. And then you start to put that tone to your life. So it also has to do with things that you don't want to do in your life. Like, oh, I have to do this. If you start to say, well, you know what, I'm going to make this nourishing for myself.
Mm.
Start, or if you create your day, which I think is really, really important.
Yes.
So instead of taking away from yourself, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to take this away. I'm not eating this. I'm not eating
Right.
carbs. I'm not eating this. I'm not eating grain, whatever the new thing is. I'm only eating meat. What we're saying, right? if we start to say that everything we're doing, even the food, is just nourishing for us, we begin to follow a new path because I believe this journey is a path. It isn't, as you said before, it's not one pill and we're done. However, that is in the picture now too. Like you could take a pill and you can, lose weight. You could take, there's a lot of things out there right now. And, but we still have our voices. We still have the same kind of criteria that we judged and looked at our life through those little microscopes of,
Mm,
um, this isn't, you know, like not being happy, not being
right,
fulfilled, not being joyful, because at the end of the day, food is there to feed our soul,
right.
right? Our soul, body, mind, and spirit. So what are we doing for that?
Yeah.
So it's, I look at it as let's feed ourselves. We can feed ourselves with, like I started to say before, morning rituals, morning
Mm,
prayers, owning, really owning a lot of the behaviors that we do during the day and adding things. I like for myself, I think adding beautiful learnings or teachings, learning a language, learning a, sport, not just working out because we need to work out, but really
right.
enjoying the process. I feel like that is a way to really feed ourselves.
Yeah. I really like the what you said about just working out not as the nourishment part, but it's because we want to. And I
Right.
think so many of us get misguided in our workouts as a way of nourishing versus
Right.
using it as this is an exercise.
So it's depending what we say, right?
Hmm.
Because it's really, what are we saying when we work out? Are we saying, oh my God, I'm going to lose weight? Or, oh my God, I'm going to be able to fit into this dress? Or, what's the end goal? Like, are we
Mm,
working out because it feels nourishing to our body? So I'm just going to stick on that word because if anyone takes something away today, just using that word could create a sense of safety inside of our bodies,
right.
right?
Eh,
It would feel like, oh my God, I feel okay. I feel good. I feel okay if I don't work out today because my body still feels nourished and I still feel happy.
Yeah, and I love that word because it's also, if I am that person who, I know I am a ex over exerciser, um, it is a great question to ask yourself. You're like, does this workout feel nourishing? Because so many of us grew up thinking workouts had to be beat downs. And if it wasn't a beat down, why work out?
Right. But is working out nourishing to you?
Now it is, but before, if you asked me that question
Right.
10 years ago, I would have like looked at you like, what the hell are you talking about, lady?
Right. Right. But you get to hold everything we do in our life, we hold it however we hold it.
Yep.
Right. Could be our day could be a series of, okay, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this.
Hmm.
Big list, which we all are familiar with the list, right? Nothing makes me happier than to finish a whole list of 5 pages long. But but now it's what I say about all those things that
Hmm.
integrate in my body, in my mind, and my soul. And it makes me feel when I wake up now, it makes me feel excited,
Right.
not just a thing to do, but a way to be.
Yeah. And I think so many people listening sleepwalk through their day. It's kind of like this, like, Groundhog's Day. It's like the same old versus what you talked about earlier. Like, how do you create a day that you're going to look forward to?
Mhm. It could be every single thing on your list,
Hmm.
and it's just a matter of how you're holding it.
Yeah.
So it could be the same thing. You don't have to go out and look for something else. You could
Right.
add a few things. And I think what ends up happening is the more you nourish yourself, the more you take a pause and you say, okay, I do want that. I do that want that piece of chocolate. I'm gonna have some.
Mm.
you're gonna, and then the words that are coming through your head allow you to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. This is my path now. My
Hmm.
path is going to be talking sweetly to myself, talking nicely to
Yes.
myself, building relationships around me that really nurture me. You know how sometimes a lot of women keep their friends just because
Hmm.
it doesn't really work. There's a lot of contention between,
Hmm.
friends, and it doesn't work, but maybe because they feel guilty or um, I mean, relationships are changing and people are leaving, coming and going. And I also think that once you have your um once you realize that you're actually if somebody leaves your life, you actually have room for two or three more people. You have more space in your life. So
Yeah.
things can come in. And that's really kind of magical because of course your body wants to hold on to what you had. Of course your body wants to like not let anything change because it's so hard to change patterns,
Mm. Yes.
right? So if we start to feel, open these situations up for ourselves, like allowing people to leave our life and being okay with it, I like to I like to give myself a story. I think our mind wants a story.
Yeah.
So you get that? Yeah. And so I say, oh, okay, maybe it's time. What I say now is like, oh, maybe it's time for them to leave. And I can't wait to see who's showing up in my life.
Ah.
Right. Or if something happens and it looks really bad, like, I can't believe this happened, is what we would normally say. Or we say, oh, look what just happened. It feels terrible. I don't want to deny that that doesn't feel good. But what if that's like the beginning of this whole new path for me?
Mm. So again, that curiosity piece.
Yeah. But it's backed up with what we're trying to feed ourselves, the stories that we're feeding ourselves, the new stories we're feeding ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's you're right because if you think about it, at this stage in our life, many of us have
Mhm.
had friends for decades,
Right.
and I might be dismissing how Debbie's behavior is because this is always how Debbie's
Right.
been,
That's how she is.
right? And
Even
you
though I get
know,
triggered every time for the last 30 years.
right, and then now you're like, and you kind of find yourself pulling away, 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 and not spending as much time with Debbie, but then all of a sudden you're like what you just said, you're like, why do I spend time with Debbie? Like
Right.
every time I'm with her, like, if it's not every time, every other time she says something that I'm like, God damn it, like, come on.
Maybe she's not changing. And
Right.
maybe we are changing.
Yeah. And it's okay. And honestly, I don't think at my age, I don't need to have this like breakup conversation.
Right.
I, I just think it's that it's really easy to just be like, yeah, I don't have time for that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's beautiful.
And, and be okay with that. And
Yeah.
so as as people are listening to this, like, it's easier said than done, which I just want everyone to take away from this conversation. What we're saying isn't going to be like, you're going to listen to this podcast and then tomorrow you're going to be like taking all these actions. That's not at all what we're saying. But there are some people out there who, every day they step on the scale
Mhm.
and it makes or break their day. You
Right.
know, what, advice do you have for those folk who like their entire self-worth?
God, you can't get on scale. You know why? Because if you thought you lost a lot of weight and you
Oh,
didn't, you're going to be miserable. And if you didn't lose anything, you're going to be super miserable and you can't win. You can't win on scale. It's like the scale has power over you. It's
I
like a no-win situation.
I love that because if you think about like I when you brought that up, it made me think about like an outfit, right? Like some of us
Mhm.
there's like an outfit in your closet that once you wear that outfit, it's like, it's your Wonder Woman cape. You put it on, you just feel absolutely amazing.
Right.
And nothing can happen to you that day because you feel like you look absolutely stunning. And if I'm feeling like, oh my God, like I feel like I lost a few pounds or I lost a few inches, why would I step on the scale and take away that feeling?
Exactly. Just to
So
back. Just to back it up? What do you,
Right. Like, am I still looking for evidence, or can I, again, going back to our very beginning, can I trust how I feel
right.
versus always looking for evidence outside of myself?
Or can I feel how I feel?
Right.
That one.
Feel the feelings. And just if you
Right.
feel like amazing, you know what? In your mind, be like, oh, the scale's down 10 pounds, and be okay with that. It might
Yeah.
not be down 10 pounds, but at least that's
Right.
how you feel. And like, what's the energy you take into that day when you feel that way?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I have the Nourish app if you want to
Right.
get some of that
Yeah.
I have a lot of what I call guided activations that are um, really key to express a lot of these outworn behaviors that we're talking about.
Mm,
Started when we were younger, and there's 12 activations. Each are bundled separately. And when I say separately, it's about food, our behaviors around food, and there's a lot of behaviors that are around relationship. And that basically these are the points of where we started to form our relationship with food, I believe. So
yeah.
if someone's not going to, not getting supported in any way, I think that it's called the Nourish app, and it's a way to really start to really live your own full potential. And I call it the life actualization process. And so I have so many activations that are here. Like, for instance, I have one that's called the sabotaging self.
Mm,
We all know,
huge.
part of us
Huge.
is sabotaging,
Huge.
right? And when we sabotage ourselves, we take ourselves out and we knock ourselves down, and we're kind of taking our own power away.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing that to ourselves, right? We could blame it on somebody else, but what ends up happening is no matter what happened as a child, we're still doing it to ourselves, even if our parents aren't there or our
Right,
guardians
right.
more. Um, so the goal of this particular activation is to bring these parts to consciousness and to begin to start to nourish ourselves so we can create a stronger, more self-loving relationship with that part of ourself. So we don't say, oh my God, that is the worst part about me or anything. All of these parts kept us really safe,
Mm,
kept us really in our bodies, and kept us really, we were able to function in life. So they were really important to us. And so once we realize that, and that's true of everything that shows up in our space,
for
uh,
sure.
once we realize that, we can begin to listen to some of these activations. And what I do is I bring in your inner child, and I feel like that's an important part because that's a part of ourselves or our life where we might have lost
Yeah.
our own sense of self, and our brain might be always, even though we don't realize it, retracting back
Right.
to that moment when something happened, whatever the event was, and we
Right.
lost that complete sense of ourself. And now we get to go back to that inner child. And it's completely guided. It completely brings you right to that point. You're in a safe space, and it brings in an inner guardian also. Like, it's not your mom, it's just
Mm,
your person that's helping you and guiding you. And this inner guardian's now exploring how you really felt, what you really needed,
mm,
what was happening with you. And by just looking at it, sometimes it's just, you know, completely shifting
right.
how we
Now,
look at that.
as I'm people are listening to this, can I just dive into different sections of the app, or do I have to go in a specific order?
Oh, no, no, because people are going to read this because I'll just name some of them and you'll resonate with something.
Gotcha.
I just started with sabotaging self. I don't know why that's not the first one, but I
Okay.
have one that's I'm not enough. And
Mm,
we know what we're bringing to the outside world,
Yeah.
bringing in our life. We know,
Yeah.
no, I always feel like I didn't do enough or I'm not enough. And then I have another one that's called What's in Your Inner Fridge.
Mm.
And and that's really talking about like compulsive behaviors where we know, oh, I know I keep doing the same thing and I know it's not right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So we get to look at like what's the trigger that happens right before that. And I call that what's in your inner fridge. Your inner fridge is represented by your body or your mind, how you're dealing with things all the time,
Right.
and how you
And
get triggered. Yeah.
yeah. And as you know, as you're talking, like going back to the beginning, like all of us fall into the same patterns. And like you said, as you're going through this app, you're gonna see, you know, one, two, hell, all of the patterns that
Well,
you might.
eventually it'll be all of them because I think
Right.
look, what the general population, what most people talk about. I've been, it's been a long time, and these are really key. Um, Foundational beliefs or foundational
Hmm.
events in our life that brought us to this point we are at now.
Yeah. And you
Good.
know, for people who do like the deep who are willing to sit down and do this deep work, you know, the results are, you know, I off the charts doesn't even really describe it, you know. And but I also found when people take the time to do this deep work, the trigger point for some of this stuff, you know, blows their mind that for some people it was an event that didn't feel traumatic at the time,
Right,
or there were people who it was an event that like they do remember, you know, the kid who called them fat on the playground, you know,
right,
30 years ago.
right. And now they think everybody's calling them fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. So, um, and we pushed it away deep, deep, deep down in our
Hmm.
psyche to the point where, you know, I mean, granted, it probably is one of the hugest motivational factors in our life.
Oh yeah. But
These things are huge factors for us that make us, be the person we are, motivate the heck out of us, make us successful in business, make us successful in, not eating at all. However, people use that event to dictate the rest of their life on some level.
right. And it's funny because if you think about, you know, I there one of my clients it did have that happen to her, you know, in like fifth grade, someone called her fat Debbie. And she remembers the guy's first and last name. And I was like, have you ever looked up this guy? Like after the fifth grade, like, you know, did you talk to him? Did you guys date? Is she your husband? Like, and you let this guy for, you know, 30 something years have so much power over you. It's really amazing how much that we don't like, even though she knows he said it, she doesn't realize how much of a chokehold that guy had on her for decades.
Right.
And
I
he
have,
probably doesn't
yeah,
even remember her.
right. He doesn't, probably. You're right. And who I don't know how her life came out. I have a story like that too. I had a guy that would, and I was like 10 or 11. That was one of this guy on our street, and I thought he was like, oh my God, he's
Hmm.
so dreamy. He's only a year older than me. And every day he would be like, okay, I'm going out with you today. And then the next day would walk down bouncing his basketball and go in front of everybody on our street, which seemed like 500 people, but it was really
Right, right. Seemed
seven
like the
people.
world back then.
He would go, oh, by the way, I'm not going out with you today. But I stayed there and I listened to him like every day, something else. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going out with him today. Oh, and who knew? Like that I never forgot.
Yeah. And you're probably like, you remember his first and last name,
Oh
and if
yeah.
you and he probably doesn't remember you.
Yep. Everything about him. It's interesting how these things. Anyway, so it's good that we have something like this. I just want
Right.
to say that we can go back to that event and release the charge that it has,
Yes.
get our needs met from this activation. And there is a solution. And so I recommend listening to, the one you choose a
Hmm.
couple of times a week, even if you just have it playing in the background. It's really surprising how things in your environment outside of you change and how you feel about yourself change it's so empowering to listen to this because it's so specific and it's so specific to so many people. These aren't off the chart types of activations. These are activations that get down to a lot of situations that have happened in our life. And even I don't care if somebody's seen a therapist. Um, these are really the shift happens quickly. Anyone that's listening to these have like quick shifts, and the difference is they're noticing it. And I also feel that we because we are doing this work, you and I and so many other women are doing this work, that for something like this to come out right now is allowing other people that don't need to go through 30 years of therapy,
Mm.
a lifetime of therapy. It can be, things can shift quickly in one's life. It can take, a couple of weeks for different patterns, and be nice to when situations happen, just come back to this app, go listen to it a couple of days. But the shift happens from the inside out.
Now, are these recordings, are they like subliminal things? Are they hypnosis things? Like what are the kind of like the
They're a kind of hypnosis, and I call them guided. They're guided,
hmm
and I call them activations. They're guided activations. And I'm offering, I don't know if you got that, a free month to all of your listeners.
Mm.
And we sent you the code. I think you have it
Yes. I
already.
do have the code and it'll be in the show
Yeah.
notes.
So they could just try, 3 or 4 and see how it affects them and see if their life's moving and shifting and changing. And I would love to hear what specific things changed for any of your listeners. It would be great feedback because I think it's super powerful.
No, it's really powerful. I had someone on the show, well, probably about maybe a year ago, talk about hypnosis and how if you guys know the statistic and I'm wrong, I'm telling you right now, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And I think she said it was like our 7-year-old brain is what's really running the show. So if
Right.
what what you're talking about are some of the things that we experienced in our, early early childhood is really the driver for why I need the unlimited carbs, the driver for why I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. And what your app is helping us do is to kind of take those patterns and figure out what the hell they are and how do we stop them.
Right. And also kind of working with that inner child that stopped at the age of 7,
Yeah.
show her, ends up really showing her fulfilling some of those needs that she had,
Mm,
showing her like what ends up happening is the perspective changes on the situation.
yeah.
Because the truth is, if I saw a kid doing that to some little girl, this guy doing it to the little girl, um, we would have a conversation, right? We would have
Right.
some conversation. We wouldn't sit there and watch that, or
Right.
uh, we would empower that little girl.
Right. Because you're like, you're not going to go down the path I went down. So like, I got to save you, sister.
Right. You're like, you know what? There's so many, we would say so many things. But I think that what happens is it diffuses that situation, diffuses that
Yeah.
story. It doesn't make it the central story of your life, the rest of your relationships, the rest of your life.
And it's interesting as you do this work and you kind of start to unpack your life.
Mhm.
It's interesting the things you remember, and then when you kind of like work on an app like this, and you start to peel back the onion layers, you didn't realize you're like, oh, that was a little bit more triggering than I thought it was.
Right. Or you could sit there and do this. How did I ever think of that in my life?
Right, exactly. You're
What could
like,
I do in my life? No.
you can have two extreme reactions of like, oh wow, or you could be like, holy shit, what was I thinking?
Exactly. Oh, funny. You're hysterical.
So this app seems absolutely fabulous. And I know many of the women listening here, we've been stuck in probably a pattern for years, because all of you guys come to me, you come to Isabelle and you're like, "Ah, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it. Oh my God, I just keep sabotaging myself." And you know what the behaviors are that pop up. So hop into the app, dig into the ones you know what happens. But guess what? There's probably gonna be a few other ones that you can be like, ooh, and that one too. Ooh, let's lump
Right.
that one in as well. And who knows, you might hit all eight of them by the
Right, exactly. I gotta do them all right now.
by the
But
time you're done with the app.
right. But the important thing is to leave your feedback because it's so different for everybody.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I had a person listen to one of the activations and she's like, "Oh my God, my whole relationship with my mother has changed." Blah, blah, blah. It was so funny. It was
Yeah.
so fast, right? From listening to it once.
Yeah, it's amazing, like just the little things that we like kind of bury and don't realize that bury thing is the one that's like his hand's been like coming out of the grave, being like, I'm gonna haunt you until you deal with me.
Exactly. Yes.
So, for those of you guys are wondering how to get all this, all of her contact information will be in the show notes. So don't feel like you have to like be clicking and scrolling trying to find this information. And Isabel, I have like two more questions for you. My first question is, what is your go-to confidence hack? Like, if for anyone who's like feeling like stuck in their body, what's your like hack for like confidence?
Taking every single story you gave yourself during the day and shifting it to the whole entire opposite way of thinking about it and saying, "Oh my God, that was magical. Oh my
Mm,
God, that was perfect for me. Oh my
oh,
God, this led me to this point in my life. This
ooh.
redirected me to not go down that path, but instead I went down this path and I met somebody really fabulous." So everything, give it a little turn.
I love that because, I always try to get my girls to journal at the end of the day. And I like how it's like you kind of recap your day, but instead of being like, oh, I got caught up in traffic today, it could be like, what is you ask yourself, what is the reframe for that? It's like, you know what, maybe I was speeding and it was a sign that I need to slow down.
You're
And
right.
it's just like instead of you spiraling on things, it allows you to kind of like pull out and like shift your perspective.
Right.
I like
Yeah,
that.
it's like what you do when you're in that. Yeah, it's like even that, what you're saying right now. What do we do when we're in traffic? I mean, you could pray, you could make a phone call if you're not holding the phone. You could
Right. The other thing you could like
get to
listen to,
know someone. You can use that
right.
time to call a person that you haven't contacted with for a long time. And then
Yeah.
you have this really amazing, I'm in traffic every day. And I
Right.
just call random people that I'm like, oh, I haven't spoken to this person in a year. Then you
Yeah.
have like amazing conversation and you catch up, and then now you feel your whole body feels connected and
Right.
feel like you're gonna, communicate with them some more, and you'll go visit them. Things happen,
And now you're no longer like, oh my God, when's traffic gonna move?
right? Because you won't care,
Right. Because you're like, I'm catching up with Mary and this is a great conversation.
right? Exactly.
And so I ask everyone this one question. What's one thing that makes you feel magical?
Okay, so my the thing that makes me feel magical is when I want to create something new in my life,
Mm,
and I start. I'm really big on visualization.
mm,
And I start to hold it in a certain way. I start to see myself in it. I start to visualize it. I start to go through the feelings of me being in it. And then I wait for it to show up in my reality outside of myself. And I'm like, and
ooh,
like if that happens quick,
ooh,
then I
wow.
say, wow, it's happened quicker and quicker all the time now.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. In it,
Yeah,
and I like the visualization piece because I don't like. I think once you kind of feel yourself in whatever you're trying to accomplish, it starts to like it gets real in your body, and then once it gets real in your body, like the excitement just builds and builds and builds.
right. And what if you just said, I'm magical and whatever I do is magical and I'm in a magical place and your life becomes, it's kind of like nourishment. Like this
Mm,
is nourishing to me, but it's nourishing and magical for me now. My life is magical. Everything I do is magical.
I absolutely love, 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 love it.
That was a good
Now,
question.
oh, Thank you. Now, where can people find you on the interwebs?
So my website's called Isabel, Isabel dash Chiara, CHIARA.com. And on that are my books. You could book a few sessions. You can have access to my app, which is called the Nourish app, or you could just go under the App Store and the Nourish app is there and you could sign up for it, and you're going to have the code so that you could just put the code in.
Perfect. Yes, we have all that good stuff
Uh-huh.
is in the show notes. So don't feel like you have to like quickly write down the spelling of her first and last name. Everything is going to be in the show notes here. And Isabel, thank you so much for taking your time with me today. It was such a great
This was so
conversation.
much fun, Kim. I loved every moment of it.
Awesome. All right, Magic Makers. If there was one takeaway from this show, do me a favor, screenshot this and tag either both of us on the social and let us know what your big takeaway was from this episode and enjoy the rest of your day. And I will talk to you guys next week.